I would argue that the Democratic Party is especially keen at using entire races, sexual identities, genders of people as props. So like I especially don't care about the pearl clutching coming from them. I would prefer that nobody were used as props to make points, but sadly that is the world we live in. Welcome back, everybody, to the Alfalfa podcast. I am your host today. That's right.
Hi.
That's right. Armand is dead, so I'm filling in.
Wow, morbid. Jeez.
I'm just kidding. He's right here.
Hi, Steven.
Yeah, Armand wasn't sure how to kick it off today, so I told him I would jump in and handle it for you guys. Today we're going to talk about a lot of things, I guess. I don't know where exactly the discussion is going to go, but it's interesting. Some stuff's been happening lately. Wanted to get your thoughts on it. So there's been this trend of politicians on the right. So some would say trafficking individuals. Others would say pulling political stunts. But we're dumping immigrants in blue cities in front of the vice president's doorstep. And recently, DeSantis, the governor of Florida, really lit up the news by sending 50 illegal immigrants on a plane to Martha's Vineyard and just dropping them there. The left obviously exploded over this. They said DeSantis he kidnapped these folks. He was engaged in human trafficking. DeSantis, for his part, I think, is saying, look, Florida is not a sanctuary state. It's not a sanctuary city we have here. I'm just sending them to a better place. I'm sending them to the sanctuary areas of the country, the place where you guys say that you like the immigrants and they're all welcome. And I'm just leaving them for a better life. So I guess
Goddamn.
From my perspective, one thing is really obvious to me. Yes, this is a cold, calculated political stunt using human beings as pawns. But I feel like everybody in politics is using human beings as pawns all the time. I think it's something both sides do. I get a little... I think it's funny when everybody clutches their pearls and they go, oh my goodness.
Hold on, Stephen, before you get into your analysis, can you give me a little context, a little deeper context of what actually happened? So like these illegal immigrants were they were imprisoned
Florida?
or they were...
No, they crossed the border. They ended up in Florida. And DeSantis or his team basically... This was obviously a calculated thing, right? And said, let's round up some immigrants that we can find, and we're going to. They signed some documentation, got consent. They said we're going to drop you off, and there's some disagreement of whether he said Boston or Martha's Vineyard, but they're close enough, Florida. But he basically got them to sign some paperwork. They chartered a plane and just put them on there and just flew them over.
And so they exited the plane at the airport, right. and then were just
where?
like free to go wherever they wished, or were they?
Yeah, I don't know if he arranged transportation for them from there.
Martha's Vineyard is a nice place.
He must have, because I don't know if is there an airport in Martha's Vineyard?
I have no idea.
The point is they flew them from Florida and transported them intentionally and directly to Martha's Vineyard, a very ritzy island. I know Obama has a $16 or $20 million compound there. Some of the wealthiest celebs like to vacation there. I think it's like 20,000 people, but I hear there's like 100,000 or 200,000 people there sometimes in the peak summer months because it's a popular, bustling tourist destination. So yeah, the left is basically like this is evil. This is the worst thing like since Hitler. One guy literally made a concentration camp analogy on the news I saw. I thought that was a little bit extreme. And people on the right are basically like, this is hilarious. This is the best troll I've ever seen. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this. Shipping immigrants from Florida to the ritzy liberal area of Martha's Vineyard, cruel political stunt or hilarious troll or somewhere in between.
Wow.
Oh my God. There's a lot here. This is fun. Well, not fun.
I think it's a fun. It's like it's a funny move, right? If you're DeSantis and you're against illegal immigration, I think it's a funny way to be like, okay, well, if you're so into it, then why don't you deal with it instead of having them in my backyard? But I think on a broader scale, like, you know, illegal immigration is illegal, right? It's part of the word. Like, illegal immigration is illegal. So
right
like
there in the word.
Maybe you don't ship them to Martha's Vineyard. Maybe you like bring them back home. To their home,
what DeSantis said was, he said, look, I don't have the power. I don't have the authority to send these people back home. The federal government should be doing this, but I do have the power to ship them to Massachusetts. So I'm going to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I think obviously this touches on a broader topic of immigration, more so than this, singular.
I feel like we could get into
event.
that discussion. I'm just curious.
There's a lot to explore.
Yeah, what do you think about the stunt in particular? Really effective, hilarious, evil?
I don't think it's evil. Not at all. There's nothing evil about it. I think it is tactful in a way, because it's like it forces the conversation to be had, right? Like we're talking about it here, and it's like I think when you have people who with like moral idealism, and then they're forced to deal with like the practical reality of a situation, it's interesting then to like maybe see somebody's tune change, and I think that's maybe the game that DeSantis is playing.
Armand's,
this is tough.
He's thinking.
There's so many layers to this.
Here it comes.
This is tough though. It's like,
well, let's focus.
God,
what do you think about the stunt in particular?
So first I would have to ask if it truly is a stunt. That would be at least the first step. And I think that, yes, we could argue all political moves in a sense are some form of a stunt or chess move in order to create an outcome that is in favor of yourself and or your political party to receive more votes and or more of a popularity sort of strengthening of what you already have. Okay, so him doing this as a whole in general, is it a stunt? Is it a political move? Yes, it really does appear that way. It does not appear at all like he just went, well, my hands are tied. I got nothing else I can do. I've gone through all the, possibilities here. I'm just going to send him to Martha's Vineyard. Like, clearly this is calculated. The Obamas apparently have a $12 million home on Martha's Vineyard. So then the next thing people started saying is, yeah, why don't you let him sleep in their backyard?
And it's 24 bedrooms.
Yeah. And I just read another comment by Shiddick, and he was like, yeah, they've got all this space back there. They're not even there most of the time. Let them. I'm sure they wouldn't mind. Like, clearly a lot of people involved. Clearly a lot of people thought this would be funny, that it would get press, which is a very important part of all political moves. Does it actually capture the attention of the culture, of the psyche, of the population? Yes, it's doing all those things. I mean, I don't watch the news, and it didn't pop up on any of the social media outlets and pages that I follow. But when Steven said it, like, hey, this is what happened, you were shocked that you're like, dude, this is everywhere. Like, this is like literally been the thing.
In my little sphere of politics that I follow, this is a big it's a big thing.
So that tells me it was effective. It tells me that it achieved its outcome, and it tells me that it was very much a House of Cards-esque sort of move. So then on the other side, or rather not on the other side, but then the next question I would ask is like, okay, is this any different, to your point? Is this any different than a political move that their opponent would make or any other ally would ever make as a whole? And it's like, yeah, people are being used as pawns all the time. We're being used as pawns all the time. Are we not pawns? in the game. Like in the episode that we did on the markets a couple weeks ago, I expressed the disillusioned feeling of feeling like a pawn, and that most people are just being bounced around by the market, and we're nothing more than like citizen numbers, and we're just part of the population. So like, yeah, pretty much everything that ever happens is human beings used as a pawn. But the difference is that when you use 350 million people as a pawn versus 50 people, there is a bit of an extreme grievance there. Like you have 50 people that were rounded up specifically for the purpose of like this stunt. It is a little bit just cheap and gross. It is a little bit gross to just use people. Like you wouldn't do that to, okay, let me put this in a different lens. Would we ever do that to citizens of this country? If citizens of this country were treated that way, we would say that this guy is a fucking animal. We'd be like,
can I jump in?
please.
Have you ever seen homeless people shipped on buses from one jurisdiction to another?
Yes.
We do.
So
that.
yeah, no, great example. And that was the purpose of the question. Do we ever treat people that way? Yeah. And we'd go, that's
Sorry if I fast played.
No.
That's
That's
itchy trigger finger.
No, it's like, to be honest though, one of the things that we lack is like, there's not enough attention on when that happens at all. Because one of the things that I argued in the homelessness episode is that we don't treat these homeless people like human beings at all. They also appear to be less than the average citizen. They are not treated equally like an average normal American citizen. So they also are being treated like animals in many ways, or non-human level in many ways. So you have that. Then you have these, again, you would never, I don't think you'd ever see 50 regular everyday people treated like this. And these are 50 everyday, regular, everyday people, but they came illegally to this country. So they broke a law. They broke our law.
Wait, are you saying these people were treated badly though?
Well, I don't have the details.
Like, I feel like most illegal immigrants don't most illegal immigrants like end up in some like South Texas border town in some crappy conditions, like overcrowded, and until they can kind of go somewhere.
To give a preface for the entire episode, like I'm exploring all of this with reading absolutely zero about this entire thing. So I don't know shit about the people or the details beyond that. They're illegal immigrants, and I'm listening to what you told me that they got shipped to Martha's Vineyard. But are you saying what? That because they got shipped to Martha's Vineyard of all places, that like that's so much better than like the typical way that they're treated?
Hold on. Can I back up one sec? Can I back up 1 second?
Yeah.
And I want to ask you guys a very simple question that I don't actually know. So I want the answer. Like, what is a sanctuary state? And is Massachusetts a sanctuary state? Is that what I'm interpreting here?
Yeah, I mean, there are sanctuary, especially sanctuary cities, right, that are sort of expressly like friendly to illegals. Like for one thing, like they say, like if you come here, we won't round you up and deport you. Is pretty much the main draw of like a sanctuary area, right? Like they're saying, like we're expressly not going to,
which is really
round you up. We're going to protect you.
Wild. Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's an extreme position.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concept is, I've never understood the concept. I think the concept is sort of,
it's a humanitarian concept.
So is California a sanctuary state? Because here in California we have many illegal immigrants who cross over the Mexican border, and those folks end up working many jobs that like a lot of people aren't willing to do. Like, is California one of these?
Yeah, I mean, California is one of the most sanctuary areas of the country as far as I'm aware.
Well, wait, I don't know how that works. I mean, are you telling me like people in California can't get deported? I don't think that's the case.
No, they can't. The idea is that like deportations are done by the federal government, right? Mm-hmm. So some jurisdictions actively cooperate with like the federal government or ICE or whoever it is to round up people and like hand them over, right? Like, so like somebody may get stopped in a traffic stop and they're clearly illegal, and then the police department like detains them and hands them over to ICE. But in like a sanctuary city, that might not happen, right? So ICE is going around in, San Francisco or something, trying to find people to deport, but the local jurisdiction is not cooperating with the federal government. They're not just like handing them over.
In San Francisco,
and that's sort of like,
for example, is like a notorious, sanctuary city, or Portland.
So traditionally in Florida, I guess what I'm picking up here is that you would get an illegal immigrant and they would get into custody, and then you would turn them over to the federal government, who would then deport them back to their home.
Yeah, like DeSantis like can't send people back to Venezuela or something. Like he doesn't, as far as I'm aware, have the authority to do that. But the federal government can.
But he had the authority to send them to a neighboring state that has friendlier laws toward legal immigrants.
As far as I am aware, and as far as I can gather, digging through the legal framework, and I am genuinely curious how there are many people on the left right now like howling that this is kidnapping or some sort of human trafficking. Like, as far as I can tell, he got them to sign a consent form, basically said, we can't take care of you here. You're not really welcome here. We're not like in favor of illegal immigration. But good news, there are all these areas of the country that say they are. They're sanctuaries.
Yeah. Look,
so we're going to send you there.
Okay. So now to go back, but to go forward in a sense, look, it's not human trafficking. Look, it's not human trafficking. It's not these extreme reactions, but it is treating people in a way that we would typically not treat them if they were citizens of this country. So then one might argue and say, well, okay, if these people are not citizens of the country, they are not given the rights that are earned by being a citizen of this country, whether you're born or naturalized as a citizen of the United States. Okay, so they should not be given the same protections and the same, basically the same protections.
But wait, how are they not being treated like citizens?
Right, because I think it's interesting that these guys probably had the choice of, you can either be deported or we can send you to
No,
a place
they didn't even give them that. They didn't even put a gun to their head, as far as I'm aware, because they couldn't, like, I don't think Florida government can deport them. I think he was literally like, hey, would you guys like a free, all expense paid trip to Massachusetts? Sign here. And everybody was like, yeah.
Well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What other choice do they have?
They could have just remained there.
Remained.
And then they would ultimately get deported by the federal government, I imagine.
I don't think the federal government's doing a whole lot of, like, there's insane amounts of immigrants. Like, as far as I know, they didn't like round. I don't want to talk too out of my ass here, because
You think that they were not forced is ultimately what you're getting
No,
at.
I know
picked
they weren't
50
forced.
people,
Yeah.
and they said, do you want to do this? Sign here.
Well, the funny
Boom.
thing is, like CNN and a bunch of other news outlets have been doing interviews with these
Yeah.
people, and they're like, were you brought here against your will? And then what was it like for you? And they're just like, no, it was so great. This place is so nice. And it makes sense, right? Like,
Steven's Mexican accent. Pretty damn good, man.
let's just bleep that out.
This man's eating a taco and a Pacifico or two. That was incredible.
Well, I was watching, like, Jake Tapper, whoever it was, just like talk to these people, and just think of like how detached we are. Right? They're talking to this person who just went through hell, like from like they came from an impoverished, like, war-torn nation in like Central America, and then paid a coyote to basically probably shove them in a truck and smuggle them over the border, and they've watched like 2 of their friends die. And then this reporter is like, how terrible is it that somebody gave you a plane ticket to the nicest area of the entire country and dropped you off here? And they're like, this is so great. This has been the best part of my last 3 weeks. Everybody's treating me so kindly. And then people are like, oh.
Okay, so I haven't seen any of this, but I am sure that is probably the case for most of them. That completely makes sense, because to get into the country is the hardest part. That's the dream. Once you're here, as long as you don't any longer have, like, to know that risk of deportation is gone, and the governor of Florida is coming to you and saying, I'm going to use you for a stunt. You don't, maybe you're not completely aware of the complexity of that, but I'm going to use you for a stunt. I'm going to send you here. You're just like, and I'm not in trouble.
But it's
and everything's good.
the equivalent.
That sounds good to you.
It's like, if I went to you, Armand, and I was like, here's $10 million in cash. I'm going to use you as a stunt. I'm going to send you to Mykonos. You're going to be like, use the fuck out of me, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's probably the equivalent of like,
I'm with it.
Of what would happen to you.
Okay. I think that actually, again, I had not looked at any of this before. I have zero awareness of this before this conversation. That makes a ton of sense to me. That takes away a lot of the kind of like trigger happy reasoning of like, these people that were immigrants were not treated equally. Look, because the next point I was going to make after that is like, okay, that's one aspect of analysis, right? We have to analyze that. But the next aspect of analysis is just plainly that, well, when you do something like that, you're making a choice to put yourself at risk. You know that. You know that deep down. And you know that actually your life is on the line.
When you fly to Martha's Vineyard?
No, when you when you cross a border. By the way, this happens in Europe too, right? People from all kinds of countries crossing into Europe and trying to find some sort of, whether they're refugees or trying to find some sort of like sanctuary in like a Switzerland or a Germany or whatever it might be, more like a Germany. And oftentimes it's unsuccessful. They get caught up in a place like Turkey, and then Turkey turns them into their home country or whatever. Or they go to Greece, and then they get caught up in Greece, and they have to somehow pay thousands of dollars and go through these secret trucks. And then the person that they pay turns on them, and then their brother or their uncle dies along the way. Like, these are real stories. And then it happens so much from people coming from Mexico to the United States. But people do it because they're signing up for a better life. And that to them is worth the risk to come into the country, or not necessarily to the United States, but a country that has a more powerful, more stable currency like the United States, to earn dollars, be able to send them back to your family. I mean, that's why people do this. They're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts for themselves and their families. So they do it with the risk, but I just don't want to lose the fact that there's a human element here.
I am not generally an advocate for using human beings as political props. I'm just sort of acknowledging the reality that is what both parties do.
Yeah.
I would argue that the Democratic Party is especially keen at using entire races, sexual identities, genders of people as props. So like I especially don't care about the pearl clutching coming from them. I would prefer that nobody were used as props to make points, but sadly, that is the world we live in. I do think that what DeSantis did was really effective at making the point, and he seems like he's really good at putting the quote unquote libs in a position where they have to defend positions they have in a way that makes them look really dumb. Bad. He did this with COVID. He did this with like the teaching of the sex stuff in schools,
right. And
now he's doing it with immigration. And I was struck by how bad the liberals were on the other end of the PR game. Like, imagine if you were like, how easy it would have been for Obama to be like, you know what? We got a big house. We're going to put
good.
all these immigrants up in my house for a week. We'll show those heartless Republicans. Like, you could have done that. You could have just put them all in his little mansion.
I need at least one impersonation every episode going forward. That's been way too long. I'm going to need at least a couple of those every episode.
Like how hard would it have been to
just... It was like a blend of Obama and like Kermit in a way.
Well, look,
like
I don't spend all day practicing my Obama impression.
Maybe a little Jordan Peterson as well. Like,
oh, that was definitely a Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
That was not my Jordan Peterson.
You have a good Jordan Peterson.
But my point was, it would have been so easy to just counterpunch this.
Wait, can you do a Jordan Peterson, playing Obama? Do the Jordan Peterson voice.
No, stop it. It has to just be like spur of the moment.
Democracy. I tried to do that. Come on, give me something. Just picks a word, rants about it.
Anyway, it'll come out sometime.
Where the hell were you?
Don't make me dump all my impressions on one episode.
I know. I used to do impressions, and people would put me on the spot all the time. And then one day I woke up and I literally can't do another accent to save my life.
Dude, you were so good at it, though.
Dude, it was so weird. Like, it's just the whole part of my brain is just gone.
You lost it.
Yeah. You don't use it, you lose it, brother.
Well. Anyway, I was trying to like slightly shift the conversation to another thing, which I think you probably have some thoughts on. And like I was saying, like it would have been so easy to just flip the script on this and make DeSantis look really, really bad.
Right.
But none of these like uber wealthy people on the left like took any of these people in and put them up on their home, even if they didn't want to do it, if they just did it for like 5 days or just 3 days in the house that they weren't even like, it would have looked so good. And instead,
So what ended up happening with these people once they got into Massachusetts? Like,
I think like 2 days later, they shipped them off to like a military base or something. And then like the people were making these posts on Facebook like, thank you for enriching our experiences of interacting with you. It was just like the most like, like you know how there's all these people with the, you know, you drive around like North Park or South Park and there's like the lawn sign, you know, in this house we believe no person is illegal. Science is real. It's just like a bunch of
Those lawn signs
truisms
are so cringe.
To like, that's what this is. It's like the lawn sign. Like, and like why this stunt was genius to me is that it exposed this idea that there's this group of sort of like, you know, elite people on the coast who do this sort of like NIMBYism / like virtue signaling thing. They like to be like, oh, I'm an advocate for this and this and this, but they never have to live with any of the consequences of the stuff they push.
Well, and the best way to prove that they are completely inept and that their ideas are broken is by forcing them to prove it to themselves. And that's what this did.
That's what this did. And that's why
that's
it was kind
brilliant
of
because
genius.
I think what everyone has tried to do in the past is like go into a very direct, head-on verbal battle of ideas. And this was a political chess move that forced them to react, to express their ideology, and then to prove that their ideology in this specific situation is completely broken by talking to the immigrants and then being like, all good.
Here's some tacos. No, just get on the bus and please leave.
So no, it is brilliant. Do you guys think that he's just better at this game, more intelligent, and ready to kind of like, what do you see here when you see this guy and like some of the moves he's making? I mean, these are pretty unique moves that we haven't seen before.
You can juxtapose it against Trump's moves. You know, he took illegal immigrants and detained them for months.
Right.
And I think DeSantis's move was more elegant, like
way more
tactical. It was like a smarter play.
He seems much more tactful and graceful with his sort of thinking and delivery of the moves as a whole. Even his speech is just so much more tactful and graceful, and still maintains that level of like kind of that right wing sort of vibe.
Yeah, and he
does
does like the Trump hand move.
He still does this.
He's like,
that's key.
He's basically like cloned all of the stuff about Trump that people love about Trump. But then he's done it like a guy who went to Harvard, you know, and like Trump is like, I don't think Trump like thinks about most of the stuff he says, right? He's just like a bull in a china shop and just like, it's just unbelievable.
This guy seems way more tactical.
Yeah, like he's very politically shrewd. I mean, say what you will about the guy, but like he is like one of the most savvy political operators like can remember seeing.
So I
don't know if I've seen a more savvy guy.
Are we pretty sure that in the next presidential election, those two will be the primary Republican candidates, like Trump and DeSantis? Is that?
Yeah, I think so. And
that's a big battle, man.
I hope we don't get into a situation where like DeSantis like loses to Trump and then has to be his freaking lapdog, like VP. And then like he's going to be his VP for 4 years and then go govern the country after. It's just like not going to work. I just like, I really want to just see the DeSantis versus Newsom showdown. I want to just get like the new young blood in there, the guy who stands for whatever crap California is doing that I think is objectively terrible, and then like there's like a clear choice there. Like the last election was like, do you want to like eat a pile of shit by spoon or would you like a fork? It was just like it was just awful. Like at least here there's like a choice between two clear things, and people can choose that choice and not be like.
So how do you feel like that election would go? Because part of me feels like Trump's catered so well to this like disenfranchised blue collar white folk that like love him. And I wonder if DeSantis can capture any of that, because I think DeSantis will do a pretty good job capturing some of this like moderate. I don't.
He definitely
consider
will.
myself
I think that's
Republican.
the shoe-in.
Yeah.
Is not the moderate. I think the moderate's the part where he's going to earn way more than Trump ever did. He'll always capture the right.
Like he's fundraised like more than any other governor in history. Like I think he's raised like $180 million. It's crazy how much money he's raised. I think he does. I think what really appeals to Trump, what really appeals about Trump to people is that he just like owns the libs. And I think that's like it. I think he's basically like, these people laugh at you and they think you're like a piece of crap and like, fuck them. Let's go punch them in the face together. And I think that's kind of the root of it. So I think DeSantis, when he does these things, is like tapping into that. Like these people like hate you. And like I'm like
I
going
agree,
to battle with them.
But what he lacks that Trump had that might be the stronger, deeper part of the Trump ideology is the we're gonna clear the swamp. He's the outsider coming in saying this is a world of lies. All politicians are crooked. Don't trust them. I'm the business guy. I know how to run shit. I'm smarter than all these people, and I'm going to do what's best for the country and the economy. And I think people got behind that. I don't know if DeSantis has. I don't know enough about DeSantis.
He's a young guy. He's not he's not like the essence of the swamp is like Hillary's running for, like you have this like grooming process. Like John Kerry ran for president.
Right.
Who the hell wanted to elect John Kerry? He's just a guy who was there,
Right.
did the establishment thing, and he was in line. We just said, we had 3 Bushes run for president. That's so ridiculous.
Yeah, but he was the first
So
that
ridiculous.
was in a position
That's
where
what
he
people
could
hate.
point out the corruption.
I agree, but I think like DeSantis is like so far removed from being like a Kerry or a Hillary or like
Yeah.
Bush the fourth. Like I think he can
Yeah.
still be an outsider, especially since he set himself up as this guy who's punching like the Democratic establishment in the face. But he's doing it in a much savvier way than like Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? Who's kind of like doing the own the libs thing, but she mostly just like self owns herself constantly, and it's just like, or like Lauren Boebert or whatever. Like they're just not super political. Like they don't appeal to the center. Like I think DeSantis really appeals. You know like David Sachs, right? Guy, I think he's got like a huge boner for DeSantis.
Yeah,
like I think he's
huge.
just like, yes. Thank
Huge.
God I can support this guy. I don't have to like secretly like vote for Trump and not talk about it on the pod
Right,
and have like
right.
Jason like hammer on me.
Do
all the
we
time.
also feel like Biden is not going to run for a second term, or will be potentially forced to not run for a second term?
I think he's going to be accidentally like fall down the stairs at some point. Like he's so dead.
And
Like,
then, and then, in your opinion, it's Newsom who will be sort of promoted as
I mean, it has to be, right? Newsom's running ads and he's running ads in Florida saying like, come back to California.
But
like
nobody even likes him in his home state. Like everyone in California hates
Is
him.
that real? He's running
Yeah,
ads saying,
he's
"Come
running
back
ads in
home."
Florida saying like, come to California. It's great over here. Everybody's like, motherfucker, why do you think we're here?
Why? There's a mass exodus.
We used to live there, pal.
mass exodus from California.
But like, I thought what was really interesting was that I think in that Dan Rather interview, was it Dan Rather? No, maybe it wasn't Dan Rather. One of the 60 Minutes guys, maybe it was. I don't know. I can't remember these guys' names. Some old white helmet-haired reporter guy. He did the interview where he's like, "No, inflation's it's
Oh, I like him.
Oh yeah,
it's
that was just like a week ago or something.
1%." He's like,
Yeah.
"What?" But I think in that interview he's like, "Are you running
That
again?"
guy's a hell of a
He's like, "Are you
voice.
running for president again?" To the incumbent president, and he's like, "Well, if I answer that, like you know how it is, I have to make all these legal things go in motion." And I was like, "All right, he's out."
Oh, he asked him.
At that moment,
he
you knew.
literally asked Biden if he's running again. He's just like,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, I can't say that.
So it wasn't an of course.
I think he's done. I think look, his approval rating is lower than Trump's, for God's sake.
It's not
It's
even that.
unbelievable.
To be honest with you, I don't think he wants to be there anymore, man. I think he knows his own.
Dude, I think he's
limitations.
just incapable, like
incapable.
physically.
I don't
He's
think
just-
he wants to be there. I don't think the establishment wants him to be
I think
there.
he's
The people
done.
who voted for him don't want him to be there.
I can't believe
Like,
he has
he's
2
just-
more years.
Ugh.
Like
It's
that's
such a hard
brutal.
job, and he's just so old and
He'll
tired.
be 80.
Like,
And like, he's not a young 80. He's an old 80, you know? Like, there's a difference. Like, he's old mentally. It's not just his age.
Yeah.
Like, he's
even
just
if-
not strong-willed at all. Like, he's just, very, very... And when he tries to show strength, it's so feeble and fake. It's so kind of gross when he
Starts
does
yelling,
it.
he turns into like,
come on, man, talk. And
yeah,
it's
it
just
turns into like old
dude,
man yells
like,
at cloud.
Yeah.
Like, it just
Yeah, he kind of seems like he's a little
gets
just-
all squinty eyed and
Yeah.
he's like you know that Office episode where like, do you ever watch The Office?
Yeah. a little.
Where like Dwight Schrute gives that
I watched
speech
all
about
of it.
he's like, the revolution, he just starts just screaming random stuff that doesn't make any sense, but it's just vaguely sort of pump
That's-
up and authoritarian. That's like it just seems like what he does in like his stuff, and yeah, it does feel very forced and like I'm totally not dead.
It's
I'm
super
totally young
weird.
and vivacious
It's super
still. And
weird,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's super weird.
I mean, so do you guys think? Okay, since you asked, like, okay, who do what do you think happens on the Democrat side? Who wins between DeSantis and Trump? What do you guys think?
I think that Trump has such a devout following. It's almost like Bitcoiners. They're like maxis, you know, like there's like
Yeah.
Trump
Yes,
maxis out
they
there that he doesn't have to do much because like Biden has done so poorly already that like I think Trump can just win by showing up almost.
Yeah.
And then like and I wouldn't want to see that personally, but that's just the way that I'm observing it, you know, as I just look at it. But you know, DeSantis seems like a better candidate, you know, just,
Mhm.
but man, Trump, shit, so many people are just like there for him.
Yeah, I think that it's Trump's if he wants it. It's kind of like that. It's like if he chooses to run and chooses to go to battle, not only will he win the primary, but he'll win the overall general election. The only way I see DeSantis winning is if Trump decides for him in his life, he's done. He has a different role to play now, and it's not to be president for another 4 years, and that he's going to choose to actually not run at all and support DeSantis and maybe play a different role.
Well,
but I think if he runs,
exactly like Trump.
if he runs, it's
Yeah, that sounds like something he would do.
yeah. You don't see him doing that, huh?
No, he's obvious. Like he just.
I'm saying
He's
that's the
so
only
mad.
reason.
He
That's
just
the only
doesn't
way.
want to
He
be a
won't do it.
loser. I think.
Right.
I think he's just like. I'm still. There was this old Jon Stewart sketch he did back in the day. I remember where like. It was like 2013 at like the correspondence dinner, and like Barack Obama was giving one of his speeches at like joke things, and he like ripped on
This
Trump.
is when the Daily Show used to be funny.
Yeah, back when
Yeah.
the Daily Show used to be funny, and like Obama dunks on Trump, and everybody's laughing, and he's just sitting there like this, and the camera zooms in on him, and Jon Stewart's just like, "This is where it all began," and I think he was right. I think Trump was sitting there like, "Fuck this guy, I'm gonna be president."
Yeah.
He was just like, I'm gonna beat all these losers."
Why is Trevor Noah so unfunny?
To be fair, I think Trevor Noah is actually more funny than Stephen Colbert, which is really sad because
Stephen Colbert used to be
he used
very
to be
funny.
so funny.
If
He
we're
used to
talking
be
about
great.
today, Stephen Colbert is a suit. If we're talking about back in the day when he was Jon Stewart's buddy, he was the shit.
he was so funny.
He was extremely talented. And yeah, like there's no comparison now. to
The-
what
the-
he's
Hold on,
become.
let's get back on track real quick because I just had a thought. I think.
right.
Damn it. I
think
want a
there's-
Daily Show talk. All right, go ahead.
I think there's a thought that just crossed my mind is like I can see a situation where a Democratic voter can read the tea leaves, they can see the writing on the wall, and if given a choice between another Trump presidency or voting for DeSantis, like just knowing that you know a Democratic president is not going to win, they would like support DeSantis, and that might be what takes him over the top.
Okay. I just had a thought as well. I think what would create a full-blown potential civil war would be a Biden versus Trump.
Oh God.
I think what would be a good election that we would want to see would be Newsom versus DeSantis. And I think a kind of middle ground election that could potentially be interesting as well would be Trump versus Newsom, but would also be pretty gross, but not as gross as Trump versus Biden.
I mean, I think Newsom would just dunk on Trump. Okay.
Really?
If Biden can beat Trump just sitting in his basement, not coming out and doing an interview for 3 months,
Yeah. Okay.
like
That's true.
I find it hard to believe. Like, people really hate Trump
That's
on the
true.
left. Like, really.
But I think they forgot. I think a lot of people have like enough time has passed.
They'll
It's
they'll
like,
remember.
okay,
He'll
like-
get into the spotlight. Like, people just forgot because you got banned off Twitter. Like, getting
Yeah.
banned off Twitter was the best thing that ever happened to him. Like,
agree.
people are almost like nostalgic for him now. They're like, oh, remember the memes? Those are some great memes, right? But like the second he's back in the spotlight, he'll say something so inflammatory and outrageous that once again, 50% of the country would be like, absolutely not. No, I will eat glass, and, and it'll be over. I think.
I don't know, but then the actual Trumpophiles, as Eric said, will be emboldened and excited.
I think he does
They'll be
beat
like, he's
Biden
back.
because Biden has just
He'll beat
absolutely fallen on his face. So I mean, he's arguably one of the worst presidents of all time, in my opinion. Which I think would be a fun discussion at some point.
Ooh.
So I think after,
Wotes, worst of all times.
yeah, like presidential votes.
Whoa.
I mean, Biden's got to be up there. People are sort of. There are some people who are like, okay, like I really didn't like the mean tweets and the questionably racist stuff occasionally, but like God, like the economy was great and my stock portfolio was a lot better at least, and gas didn't cost $17 a gallon. So I think there's a lot of people who might. That was a close election. I think it might tip, and I think he would beat Biden, and I think that would be terrible for the guy. I think the country explodes if Trump is like president again. Like I don't think it would be
Like implodes, like explodes, like in a good way. Like the economy explodes, and
like if I was like, Eric, you're gonna implode. Would you be like, oh great, that sounds a lot better than exploding?
well, exploding can be used in a positive way when you're talking about the market, sort of like popping off.
No, I mean like explode, like like dynamite into a million pieces. I don't think it'll be good. I think it'll be we'll be having the Civil War discussion a lot more.
Maybe as we work toward wrapping this up, Stephen, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't, like I said, had a chance to look into this, but some of the narrative that I saw going around the more left-leaning publications was that this was kind of like a bit of an act of war. Like, did you think about that or come across that and kind of see it as like this could be the beginning of
The Martha's Vineyard?
yeah,
thing?
yeah, where we started. Yeah.
No, I don't.
I guess what do you think are the consequences of this move? The second, third order, how does this play out? What's next?
I think the consequences of this move are mostly good. I think that there's been like this uncomfortable, like awkward thing brought up where like Eric Adams is a great example of this, right? Like he declared a state of emergency because New York, like a population of like 15 million people or something, they had like, I don't know, like 50,000 immigrants come in. And it was like, or maybe it was like 15,000. It was a very small number relative to the New York infrastructure. He's like, state of emergency. And then he was trying in an interview to toe this line between talking about like how DeSantis was so bad, but also there's nothing wrong with the Biden administration's immigration policy that has resulted in this like mass like crossing of the border that we've seen. That's like tearing his like city apart supposedly to the point where he has to declare a state of emergency. So I think the ultimate result of this is like I really think like independents, especially. I think people on the left are always going to see what they want to see, and people on the right are always going to see what they want to see. I do get the vibe that like independents like kind of like DeSantis. Like I feel like he speaks to them, and I feel like they're looking at the stuff he's like shining a spotlight on and being like, that's kind of weird. That's not good. I don't like that. And I think the stuff he shines spotlights on in general is like, I don't know, to me it seems like reasonable, and I would like those things to change. Like, right, like I don't like dislike immigrants, but like it's also not good that this many people come over the border like this illegally. If nothing else, then like we have to understand that everybody coming over the border right now is mostly facilitated by like the cartel. It's like a huge business. Like we've created this like enormous industry where these people are just like paying these like murderers basically to take them over the border. Like I heard a story about somebody who was like trying to cross the border by themselves in the river, and like the coyotes literally like went in the river and pulled them out, and were basically like, you have to pay the toll. Like you like, so we're
I have never heard that is.
it's like
how,
it's like one of these things where under the guise of trying to be good people, we're like, oh, no person is illegal. Everybody come in. It's like you think you're doing something virtuous, but like the second, third order consequences.
we got to have a whole episode on this topic. Though.
I think-
Right.
That's-
I want to
you
keep
just
going on it, but
scratched
Yeah,
my
I think
whole
we should do a whole
Jimmy, and
I think we should
wanna
do a whole
go-
immigration one. I think it'd be interesting.
Definitely.
I know this kind of turned into like a political variety hour.
Yeah.
Which I had fun with actually.
Yeah?
We I know we usually stick to like one topic and do a deep dive.
You-
but
you
I,
liked-
I
you liked
yeah,
the-
I kind of had the fun. I kind of had fun.
Steven
bouncing
had
around
fun,
and
Eric.
shooting the shit. Like we don't get like.
I can tell Steven is freaking bouncing around.
Yeah, it was fun to get
Bouncing
like
aura.
sort of like overtly political for
Yeah.
for once.
So
you know?
Stephen Colbert, worst of all time.
Yeah, he's the
He
vote now.
sucks.
It's an
You know what
interesting
told-
question
you know
of,
what
like,
showed
if
me, and
him
we'll
or
wrap
Jimmy
with-
Kimmel's the worst.
Oh, we'll wrap with this. You know what showed me that he was the worst ever was when Jon Stewart went on Stephen Colbert and talked about COVID.
Oh my gosh.
And
he
Stephen
killed it.
Colbert
Stewart
was like,
killed it.
he killed it. And he was like,
Colbert was like-
this is the expression of a free man, was Jon Stewart. A free man with no ties to any organization or person who speaks from his heart with conviction. And Stephen Colbert was like, I don't even know if there was a human there. It was just like a robot, like
He's
reacting.
You cannot say that.
Yeah.
Oh God.
He was like bad. And his whole entire like origin was, I am a truth comedian. I point out truths that are funny, and they're funny because they're true. That was the whole purpose of what The Daily Show was supposed to be. And Stephen Colbert is no longer that person. So maybe he has no choice.
I miss the Jon Stewart days.
I know.
Those are good times.
I know.
watching
He's a
him.
smart,
He's a
free
good guy.
man. He's the reason that I was so left leaning for so long. Was a lot of his ideas, and I still think a lot of his ideas are absolutely great. So, yeah, man, good stuff, boys. That is a wrap. We'll see you in the next episode, everybody. What are we talking about, Steven?
We are talking about my crippling, chronic, always on the internet addiction.
Addictions.
Yeah.
Your addicted life.
Yeah.
The trade-or.
I haven't figured out the exact pitch for it, but
That's okay.
be
It'll come
something
to
else.
us. We're gonna figure it out. All right. Peace.
Later, guys.
Later.